You know that feeling, right? When you think there's like a vibe with someone,
Mm-hmm.
maybe even some actual signals they're interested, and then bam, they act super rude,
Oh, yeah.
dismissive,
Yeah.
maybe a snarky comment, and it just completely throws you, you're left thinking, wait, did I do something wrong?
It's a really confusing spot to be in. And if you felt that, seriously, you're not alone.
Right.
So today we're doing a deep dive into exactly that. Why do some guys act rudely, even when, well, it seems like they might actually like you?
Okay.
We've looked at a bunch of different perspectives, psychological stuff, social pressures, and sometimes, honestly, just awkward communication.
Exactly. And look, the goal here isn't to, make excuses for bad behavior.
Not at all. Rudeness is rudeness.
But we do want to try and unpack it a bit,
Yeah.
give you some understanding, like what could actually be going on underneath.
Yeah, what are the different factors possibly at play?
So hopefully by the end of this, you'll have maybe a clearer picture. And crucially, you won't just automatically jump to thinking it's your fault.
Hmm. So where should we start? Maybe with what's going on inside their heads.
Yeah, let's do that. The internal stuff.
Okay, so one really big thing that comes up a lot is underlying insecurity and fear.
Fear of rejection.
Fear of rejection, absolutely.
Mhm.
That's a huge motivator for, well, a lot of human behavior, isn't it?
Sure.
But for some people, that fear doesn't just make them shy. It can actually come out as, like, defensiveness, acting standoffish.
Like putting up a wall, but sort of an aggressive wall.
Exactly. It's almost like a preemptive defense mechanism. They act rudely to maybe brace themselves or even push you away first so they don't risk getting rejected by you.
Wow. Okay. That's counterintuitive, but I can sort of see the logic. And insecurity itself, you mentioned that too.
Yeah, deeply tied in. If someone feels like deep down they aren't really worthy of attention or affection,
Mm-hmm.
they might, maybe unconsciously, maybe not, sabotage things, act
Yeah.
rudely so the connection never gets deep enough for them to be, quote unquote, found out.
Or hurt. They're trying to avoid getting hurt before it even starts.
Precisely. And often this is tangled up with, past experiences, emotional baggage.
Right. If they've been burned before.
Exactly. Major heartbreak, bad relationships that can lead to developing these like automatic defenses. And rudeness can become one of them, a way to just not go there again.
So it connects to that fear of vulnerability we hear about.
Absolutely. Being open, being genuine, showing your real feelings that can feel incredibly risky if you've been hurt.
So the tough, rude exterior is safer for them.
In their mind, potentially yes. It avoids showing what they might perceive as weakness.
Okay. And you also mentioned something about trying to maintain control. How does rudeness fit with that?
Yeah, that's another layer. It's this idea that by being a bit rude or dismissive, they feel like they're setting the tone, they're controlling the interaction's temperature.
Keeping you slightly off balance, maybe?
Kind of. It prevents them from looking too interested, too eager, which, again, they might wrongly equate with being weak or losing control of the situation or their emotions.
Man, that sounds exhausting.
It probably is. So, yeah, a lot of this seems to stem from these internal struggles, fear, insecurity, control issues. But then there's the whole other side, too.
External stuff, like society and bad advice.
You got it. Misguided approaches and social influences.
Ah, okay. Like the classic play hard to get strategy.
Ugh. Yes, that one seems immortal, doesn't it?
It really does. Do you guys actually think being aloof or kind of mean is attractive?
Well, some apparently do. It comes from this, like, flawed idea about attraction. Maybe thinking that if they seem unimpressed or hard to win over, they'll become more desirable.
Sounds like game playing.
It often is. And usually not very effective in the long run for building something real. Plus, you've got those broader cultural pressures.
Around masculinity, like, gotta be tough.
Exactly. The whole be tough, don't show emotion thing. That pressure can definitely lead to behavior that just reads as rude.
Because being nice or enthusiastic might seem, what, soft?
To some, yeah. It's like they're trying to perform a certain kind of masculinity, and sometimes that performance involves being kind of abrasive.
Okay. And sometimes, is it just a clumsy way to get attention? Like, any reaction is better than none.
That's another angle, yeah. The idea that being a bit provocative, maybe even negative, makes them stand out.
Instead of just blending in. Risky strategy, though.
Very risky, often backfires spectacularly. Then there's this other concept that came up, testing boundaries.
Ooh, I don't like the sound of that already. Testing boundaries with rudeness.
Right. It sounds problematic, and frankly, it usually is. Healthy boundary setting is about communication and respect, not poking someone with rudeness to see what happens.
Exactly. It feels like trying to see how much you can get away with.
It can definitely feel that way. The thinking behind it, supposedly, is that some guys might act this way to gauge your reaction, see how confident you are, what you'll put up with.
Like trying to figure out the power dynamic early on. That feels
Mm.
manipulative.
It can absolutely come across that way. And it's, again, a really misguided approach. Genuine connection isn't built on testing someone's tolerance for disrespect.
No kidding. You ask about boundaries, you don't stomp on them.
Precisely. And this kind of ties into that whole bad boy persona some guys aim for.
Ah, the idea that nice guys finish last.
Yeah, that outdated trope.
Right.
The mistaken belief that being kind equals being weak and that negativity or being a challenge is somehow more attractive.
It's based on some pretty flawed assumptions about what people actually want.
Totally flawed. Many people are looking for kindness and strength, not rudeness masquerading as confidence. In fact, some research suggests guys who lean heavily into that bad boy thing might actually be showing their own deep insecurities and struggles with forming healthy attachments.
Interesting. Okay, so we've got the internal fears, the external pressures, and bad advice. What else? What about just communication?
Oh, absolutely. That's a huge piece of it. Sometimes it's less about deep strategy and more about, well, just not having great communication skills.
Yeah, like they just don't know how to say what they mean.
Pretty much. So instead of, articulating, I like you, but I'm feeling nervous or I'm not sure how this works, it just comes out wrong.
Like a sharp comment or a pulling back.
Exactly. Rudeness or withdrawal can be a default when someone feels conflicted internally, like they have feelings but also doubts, or they just don't know how to express the positive feelings effectively.
Hmm. And that withdrawal piece, guys pulling away when they're processing things.
Yes, that's a notable tendency mentioned in some sources. There can be this cultural conditioning towards independence, needing to sort feelings out internally, maybe alone.
But from the outside, that just looks like they've gone cold, like really rude, sudden distance.
It can feel exactly like that.
Yeah.
A sudden shift from warmth to coldness feels like a rejection. And circling back, this distancing can also be tied to that fear of rejection again.
How so?
Well, if they start to really like someone, they might become hypersensitive to any sign you might pull away. So they pull back first, withholding affection as a shield.
Wow, okay. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy waiting to happen. They fear rejection, act distant, which then causes rejection.
You can become that kind of painful cycle, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, it's also really important to say, sometimes what feels like rudeness might actually be something else entirely.
Like a misinterpretation.
Exactly. Which brings us to, mixed signals and just awkwardness.
Ah, yes. The age-old, was that flirting or were they just being a jerk? Dilemma.
Totally. That line can be so blurry sometimes, can it?
Definitely. Playful teasing versus actual meanness.
And different communication styles play a huge role. Plus, just plain old nervousness.
Oh yeah, nerves can make people act weird.
For sure. Some people get really awkward, maybe even a bit sarcastic or, well, rude adjacent when they're nervous around someone they like. It's like their social graces just short circuit.
Instead of smooth, they go prickly.
Yeah, prickly is a good word for it. It's a clumsy coping mechanism. And then you have the really maddening situation, the mixed signals.
Hot one minute, cold and dismissive the next.
The emotional whiplash, right. And sometimes the person sending those signals is just as confused as you are.
Really? They don't know what they want either.
Could be. Maybe societal pressure to hide feelings, maybe genuine uncertainty, maybe fear. It leads to this ambiguous back and forth that feels really inconsistent and, frankly, rude.
Okay, so it's complicated. Lots of possible layers.
Very complicated. But we do need to draw a line, right? Between maybe occasional awkwardness or a misstep.
And consistent, deliberate rudeness.
Exactly. There's a big difference. So thinking about all these different threads, the fear, the bad advice, the communication issues, the potential misinterpretations, what are the big takeaways for someone experiencing this?
Well, I think the first big one is, it's probably not about you.
That's key.
Right. His rudeness is way more likely a reflection of his internal stuff, his insecurities, his fears, his lack of skills, than it is a judgment on your worth.
Absolutely. Don't internalize it as meaning there's something wrong with you. And, crucially, persistent rudeness is not a good sign.
Definitely not. It's not some secret code for I really like you. It's usually just rudeness. And maybe even a red flag.
A significant red flag, potentially. And remember, it is absolutely not your job to decode someone's bad behavior or try to somehow earn basic respect.
Or fix them.
Or fix them. Exactly. If the behavior is consistently disrespectful, you don't owe them your time or energy trying to figure out the hidden meaning.
So what can you do if you want to address it?
Well, if you choose to engage, clear communication is vital. Tell them how their actions land. Hey, when you said X, it felt dismissive. Or, I don't appreciate being spoken to like that.
Setting those boundaries.
Yeah.
Clearly and directly.
Yes. Be honest about what you need and what's not okay. And really pay attention to the overall pattern.
Right. Is it a one-off weird moment, or is this how they consistently act? Is there genuine respect underneath, or just negativity mixed with occasional attention?
And if it's consistently the latter, if you're always feeling confused or put down or on edge,
It might be time to walk away.
it's often the healthiest choice. Prioritize your own well-being. You absolutely deserve consistent kindness and respect. No games, no decoding required.
Amen to that. And you mentioned something about a push-pull cycle.
Yeah, just briefly, it's this unhealthy dynamic where someone acts distant or rude, the push, which can make the other person feel insecure and try harder to get reassurance, the pull.
And that just reinforces the bad behavior.
Exactly. The inconsistent person gets the attention they might crave, maybe feels a sense of control, and the cycle continues. It's toxic and something to be really aware of to avoid getting sucked in.
Okay, good point. So let's quickly recap the main themes we hit.
Sure, so reasons someone might act rude despite attraction could be deep-seated insecurity or fear of rejection.
Right, or misguided ideas about attraction, like playing hard to get or trying to seem tough.
Or maybe just poor communication skills, difficulty expressing emotions, or needing space to process things internally.
And sometimes, yeah, it could just be nerves, awkwardness, or a genuine misunderstanding.
But the big takeaway, really, is that understanding why someone might be rude doesn't mean you have to accept the rudeness.
Not at all. It's about gaining clarity for yourself.
Right, so you don't automatically blame yourself, and you can make choices that are actually good for you, choices based on deserving respect.
Exactly. So maybe a final thought for everyone listening to chew on.
Okay.
Now that you've heard these potential reasons, these different layers behind confusing behavior, how might that change how you interpret those situations in the future? While obviously still holding firm to your own boundaries and what you expect in terms of respectful treatment. And maybe the deeper question is, does understanding the reason for someone's rudeness ever obligate you to accept the behavior itself?
That's a really powerful question to reflect on. Does understanding equal acceptance?
Definitely something to think about. Thanks for diving deep with us today.